sharing with you in this video how to keep your energy high when creating what you want. And oftentimes what I think people don't realize is that it's not just about the action that you're taking, and then if you just do the right thing, then you will get the result. Because oftentimes, yes, absolutely, if you just take the right action and then follow the right steps and then do the right structure, you can get the result. But oftentimes as well, what I believe is that just following the right structure, so to speak, the quote-unquote right structure, is not enough. Because oftentimes one person can follow that structure and then get the results that they're looking for. Another person can again follow the same structure and not get the result that they're looking for. In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you why I believe that that is the case. And then so the first thing that I want to share with you in this video in terms of how to actually do this is to have an understanding that really to keep your energy high at any moment while you're creating what you want is to have an understanding that this might sound so simple, this might sound easy to overlook, but I think that ultimately speaking, one of the biggest secrets to keeping your energy high consistently every single day while you're creating what you want is to have a balance of discipline and both rest. Because the truth is that there's going to be times where sometimes it does not matter what your mood is. Doesn't matter how you feel. You might wake up in the morning and you might feel like it's not a good thing for you to continue on the thing that you set out to do. You made a decision maybe prior, the day before, maybe you earlier in the day made a decision to do something and now you feel like you don't want to do it. And so oftentimes we have to learn to reprogram ourselves and understand that no matter how we feel, oftentimes it's about following the structure even though you don't feel like it, because oftentimes that's the decision that's going to make you feel like it. That's going to change your mood. It's going to make you feel a lot better. Oftentimes people actually feel very stagnated in their life because they're not taking enough action. They're in this sort of stagnated state of inaction. And when you take a long enough period of time in a state of inaction, you're going to feel like your energy is actually very low. And it's ironic because you would think that, oh, I need to generate more energy to take more action. But oftentimes if you just make a decision to take action and accept kind of where you're at, then you start to build energy. Energy starts to come to you as you take action. And then so other times as well, what we have to realize is that doing the same routine, the same logical thing over and over and over every single day, sometimes is not going to cut it. Eventually, you have to actually get to a point in your life where you find exactly what to do in the moment. You know exactly whether it's time for you to be extremely disciplined consistently every single day as you told yourself you would be. And other times you're going to find that maybe it's time for you to break that structure and then to break that discipline and then to do something different, maybe temporarily just to get right back into it as soon as possible. But oftentimes you have to know when to be flexible as well with the structure that you've created for yourself, because you can't just follow the exact same structure sort of like a robot every single day without thinking about the beingness behind what you're doing and think that that's going to be perfectly fine and dandy to help you become the best version of yourself. You may get what you want if you act like this, like you might get the results that you're looking for, but at what cost? And do you really get what you want, or do you get this idea of what you think that you want, but then oftentimes in the moment you're not really actually happy? There's something missing there. Your heart feels maybe a little bit empty. Maybe you feel like there's not enough love, so to speak, in what you're doing every single moment, every single day. Because oftentimes what we have to start to realize as well is that, again, it's not just about the A, B, C, D, linear structure. It's like go from A to B to C and then do the exact thing and then you get the result. Oftentimes it's about how are you doing what you're doing and which place are you actually coming from during the process that you're taking action. And then so the second thing that I want to share with you as well that's going to help you to keep your energy high when creating what you want is to understand that, it's good to inquire and to think towards yourself. Think upon your own time, this concept of, is your creation for you? Like, are you really doing it for you? Because oftentimes I think that we can get into a pattern of doing things only for others, right? It's an over people pleasing mentality. Like you're only doing it for other people, and then we call this selfless, so to speak, but then it's at the expense of ourself. And so is that what being selfless is? Do we need to sacrifice doing things for us in order to be selfless? I actually don't believe that this is the case. I believe that to be the truest selfless version of yourself, like the person of yourself, the version of yourself that has the highest level of value to offer to the world. Like you can become the person that gives value to people on a consistent basis. If you want to be that person, you have to do it for yourself first and foremost. It can't be just for others. There has to be that element of selfishness to what you do. And if there's no energy of quote unquote selfishness to what you do, and it's only selfless, I would argue that you're not really being selfless at all. And that in fact you go full circle and you become very selfish again, because you are not willing to own the fact that you do have wants and you do have desires and that things are for you. Because oftentimes you're still gonna want those things, right? Even if you tell people that you're only doing it for them and that it's only for the external world, oftentimes what we've done is just we've taken our desires, our wants, and we've sort of shoved them under the rug, and then we pretend that they don't exist, but then of course they still exist, and then they still manifest as many dysfunctions, I believe, in interactions with people in the world as you're creating what you want within yourself, and there's just no balance energetically and no harmony with you and your environment. There's no respect, there's no honor, there's no natural respect and honor that comes when you honor the fact that some things are going to be you being a little bit selfish, you wanting what you want. And so again, oftentimes what people fail to realize is that you wanting what you want and you being the quote unquote selfish version of yourself that you're afraid to own is often one of the best things that you can actually do for life. Because remember, just as much as like maybe you want to be a doctor, maybe you want to be a doctor, genuinely that's your life path, right? Let's just say that's the case. Just as much as you want to be a doctor, there's many people that are going to need your help. Just as much as you want to create that podcast, there's many people that are going to want to listen to that podcast specifically around the topics that you share. If you want to be a person that builds houses, maybe you want to be in construction, maybe you want to be an engineer, an architect around building the houses, there's going to be people that need that type of thinking to create what they want as well. So now something that they want, maybe they want a house, aligns with your engineering, aligns with your logic and your ability to create, maybe even physically, whether it's in construction, whether it's in engineering, whether it's maybe they need to install an AC unit in their house. And now they need to find somebody to install that AC unit, and there's a specific person that knows exactly how to do it. And that, what if that all these other people that do these other services, that's genuinely them being selfish, but then you also being selfish and wanting something else, so to speak, comes together, and that's what you call cooperation, co-alignment, where you're co-creating together. And so this is not something to take for granted, right? You can actually have people that don't honor this and don't have this basic respect for the fact that we're all here to co-create. So I think that one thing that's important to remember is if you can actually do it for yourself, naturally what begins to happen is that you begin to actually be a person of more respect and more honor. Oftentimes we think that if I become selfish and I do things for myself and everyone's gonna hate me and I'm gonna be a narcissist. It's like, not really, that's not true. I believe that oftentimes if you can do things for yourself, you become a very respectable person that actually can offer more value to the external world as a result of the fact that you can give more back to people now that you've sort of taken care of yourself. Remember, when a plane has a crash, if God forbid you would ever be on a plane crashing, let's hopefully that doesn't happen, right? I apologize to put that idea in your mind, but the point is that if a person is on a plane crashing, what happens is that, why is it that they tell you to put on your mask first before helping another person? Because you can't really put on a mask on another person if you can't breathe, if you can't help yourself first. So understand that if you do it for yourself first and foremost, what begins to happen is that your energy stays high. You're able to come at what you're doing with a higher energy, with a higher life force, and then eventually that's going to make also a better result for others as well, because you're bringing them more value, more energy, and you're helping them in a way that you otherwise couldn't have if you were, so to speak, only doing it for them at the expense of yourself. And then so the third and final thing that I want to share with you in this video in terms of how to keep your energy high when creating what you want is to have an understanding that you never want to take any action in your life, in my personal opinion, without the essence behind it. So going back to what I talked about earlier about doing things sort of robotically, doing things too logically, too structured, too disciplined. Not that there's an issue with discipline. We need discipline. We need consistency. If you want to create something great in your life, I think that you have to be consistent every so often, whether it's every single day, whether it's every other day, whether it's every single week. You have to get on a schedule and be consistent. Do it consistently on a schedule. No exceptions to that, unless, of course, you have to be flexible so that you can maintain your values of bringing the essence into what you're doing. So it's not about necessarily breaking the structure completely or going against your word or doing anything like that. Sometimes you're going to have to maybe break the structure. Sometimes you're going to maybe have to temporarily go against your word when it comes to the commitments that you make for yourself. But the truth is that the highest value that I believe that we should be sort of maintaining, not that I can choose for you what you should value. It's just that I believe personally what I value and what I would invite and encourage others to value as well is to understand that when you can actually care about your essence while you do what you're doing, which is actually being connected to God, being connected to your source, being connected to the formless aspect of who you are prior to anything happening in your life. And of course, that's infused with the form. But what I'm talking about is this sense that you just simply exist, and to actually be happy with the fact that you're in the process of creating in of itself. Because if you're so caught up in what you're thinking is useful for you, but then you lose the essence while you're being present to the moment, then I believe that we've lost touch with what's really important, which is to enjoy the process while you're creating what you're creating. And yeah, that sounds cliche. It's like, yeah, that's cliche. It's like, we already kind of already know that. And that's the response that we want to have, is like, oh, I already know that. And it's like, I've already heard that before. But it's like, are we actually applying this on a moment-to-moment basis? Do you actually have a connection with God every single moment while you're taking action in your life? And do you know this? Or do you just believe it? Do you kind of hope it subconsciously? There's a difference, in my personal opinion, between knowing God and knowing the source and knowing who you truly are, and then sort of hoping that it is the case. And you can come from a space of gnosis, where you know the truth, where you know the essence, and you can see the difference in your life between living from the truth, living from the essence of who you truly are, and then not. That's when you can become very powerful, and not egotistical power where you want to take from others and abuse this power. It's a true power where you only control your state. You only care about your state. You only care about how you show up. And then so naturally, when you do this, you start to also care about how others actually feel in their life, because you've actually taken care of yourself first. Like if you're in a negative spiral, if you're lost in your thinking, if you're attached to your ego and all these types of things, it's not that you can't help others, but it's oftentimes hard to solve a problem if you're still attached to the same level of consciousness that created the problem to begin with. And then so in order to find that solution, we have to separate ourselves from the problem. And oftentimes this happens completely naturally when you care about being connected to your truest essence while you're taking action and while you're doing whatever it is that you want to be doing in your life.